the idea of leading with love for people, right, is something that we don't talk a lot about. It's sort of can be seen as taboo, but
Well, love's kind of the four-letter word,
yeah,
right?
that's right.
So
That's right.
hi, my name is Pedro Vasquez. Excited for this episode of the Team Around the Table. Today, we're going to talk to you about talent and making sure we have the right talent, taking care of our clients and driving value. And I'm very thrilled to have my best team around the table with Jamie Ergle and Shannon Koenigsdorf. So Jamie and Shannon, thanks again for taking the time with me today. When I think about talent, it's the best person at the table at the right time in the right role that's what drives that client relationship, that drives the value for the client, for the team, and every day. So Jamie, if you could maybe give us an inkling your clients and what's that client conversation with them about every day?
So I would say that it really hasn't changed a lot over the last 5 to 10 years. I think it's been pretty consistent, but it's very critical. We need to make sure that we are aligning our teams to the client's culture, for one, but more importantly, that we're evolving our teams and making changes as we need to as the needs of the clients change.
I love the conversation of that's team conversation is a continued evolution,
Correct.
right? Particularly in the portfolios that your teams touch. You're talking about disparate portfolios and maybe a different type of leader that your clients are looking for. So talk about what are you hearing from your clients?
Yeah. So I think the general themes are the same, right? I mean, having that right person who can understand the client's needs. And, in our case, in many instances, our leaders are centralized at the Portfolio Services Center, for example, and we've got clients on site at their headquarters. So that takes a really unique skill set, someone who can doesn't have the benefit of bumping into their clients at the water cooler every day, isn't physically sitting in client meetings day in and day out, but who's maybe participating via Zoom or phone when they're not visiting the client site. So that ability to listen and to really immerse yourself in a client culture if you're not physically present every day, something that's really hard to teach, right? And so we look for, and something that I hear from clients is our leaders are super empathetic. And I don't mean empathetic in like a soft way, but that ability to hear even what their clients aren't saying and respond to it before clients have to bring it up as an issue is something that I think for us is so critical in making that successful partnership.
I love that. And I love how you bring that empathetic, right? Leads me to kind of things I think about all the time is there's certain characteristics
Mhm.
that make a great leader. What are characteristics? Let me start with you, Shannon, particularly since you brought up empathy as one. What are characteristics when you think about that top person in the box who's that one-on-one relationship with a key client? What are characteristics that you're looking for to make sure that's the right person?
So empathy is always going to be number one for me because I do believe that as an empathetic leader, you're soaking in sort of what your client is and is not saying, but also your team, right? And then bringing those two things together to drive good decision making on behalf of both the client and the team is so for me that's sort of table stakes. And then I think if I go the next layer down, it's really sort of that curiosity or lifelong learner, right? So to me, that hard skill set from day one is secondary if you're really curious and you are smart and you have that ability and that drive to learn. So curiosity, likability is definitely
Yeah.
important. And then for me, that drive and the ambition, I'm just naturally drawn to people who are competitive and who want to win because I think that translates so well with the clients. They want to win on their clients' behalf and they want to win on behalf of the people that they're leading as well. So to me, that combination of the three overlaid with empathy, if I could just draw up what a great
Perfect.
leader would look like, that's what it would look like for me.
Fantastic. I love that. The likability, I think, is important because the relationship leader has with their client, being able to, people like to work with people they like, right? And but there has to also be credibility in that space to be able to bring all that together. So, if I can change direction on us a little bit, how do you balance with the leader the cultural aspects to be effective
Mhm.
and the subject matter expertise that somebody needs to be able to take a client to the next level?
Mhm.
I think to me, that's one of the hard balancing points. So, Jamie, how do you balance the subject matter expertise of a leader and the cultural fit?
So One thing that I've always told my teams when I've had situations where they've come to me and said, we have two great candidates. One's qualifications might be slightly higher, but the other one can absolutely do the job, but the other one is a fit with the client the best. And I just tend to look at them and say, I have had to move very few people for lack of their ability to do the job, but I've had to make changes when there's not a good cultural fit. It very seldom actually works. So I think that's just a really important, first navigation step and how we look at talent. I think it's so critical, again, to get that alignment because our teams are an extension of the client's teams, right? So finding that right balance, making sure that the priorities that we set for them are the same as the clients and things like that really do make a huge difference. Now, you can't put somebody in that the client really likes if they don't actually know how to do the job. And so I think just balancing those things out, good leaders hire good people who can be experts in things that maybe they're not in, but making sure that, and one way that I do that as well is I just really talk to clients in advance and say, hey, these are the things I'm looking for when I'm hiring somebody. What's important to you? And sometimes clients have said to me, oh, I really want somebody from life sciences or healthcare, and I want them to be on site with me, and I like them to have these types of experiences. And when you get aligned around that, you can then make some of these decisions on what's most important and what's not.
Alignment solves so many problems that occur at the end of the day. So Shannon, and when you think about how you get your leaders to kind of get that 400-person organization lined up and they're geographically spread across maybe the entire country or even into outside the US, how do you make sure that culture goes down through an entire organization?
Yeah, so I'm laughing because I know we're so aligned on our viewpoint on this, but the idea of leading with love for people, right, is something that we don't talk a lot about. It's sort of can be seen as taboo, but
well, love's kind of the 4-letter word.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. That's right. But I mean, I am very transparent about, the reason that I love this role is because I love the people that I have the opportunity to serve in this role, right? And so I think if you're starting from that place, a lot of good things can happen because I think that builds trust. And when people trust in the leader and the vision that they're setting, and they believe in the message and what you're trying to get them to accomplish on behalf of clients, on behalf of one another, whatever it is, you can really achieve some great things from that place. So I believe in being as transparent of a communicator as a leader as I possibly can. And then not only encouraging, but really holding the teams accountable for that same level of transparency as they deliver messages on what are our goals? What is it that we're looking to accomplish? How are we going to get there? What are the rewards going to be if we get there? What are the repercussions going to be if we don't get there? That level of honesty is something that I find that teams really value and clients really value as well, because they know that there's no fluff. What you see is what you get with me, and I'm going to give you the hard message. I'm going to give you, the great message. There's not going to be a lot of flour on top of it, but that's how I found to be most effective in this role.
No, I agree 100%. The authenticity of the leaders and us as senior leaders with our teams is just so important. So, Jamie, you have large relationships where you're having to getting into technical trades often within your teams, which can even be more challenging. I know relationships that go across oceans, right? And hitting other cultures. So how do you help your teams think about that depth and spread across those different cultural norms or trade categories to have that all the way down through the organization?
Yeah. So one of the things I learned early on was that people want to know what it is that they do that makes a difference or how it impacts the overall goals in the organization. So one, if you can really push that down and help even an engineer or a mobile tech to understand that when they respond and have a good client interaction, when they respond to a work order and they get it done on time and they close it out, do all those things, that helps us to help the client to achieve the goals that they're achieving. And if you can just take it down to every level, that makes a big difference. I also think it's really important that we leverage the infrastructure and the rhythms we have within our company around talent and talent management as well. So the succession planning that we do, the calibration and talent management that we do, working together to look at when we need to make a change in a role or we need to hire somebody, are we leveraging our recruiting team and the proactive things that we're doing as a company to make sure we have talent ready to go when we need it. And I think it's also sharing that information across accounts. Like what I really try to do, I have a team site that my senior leadership team gets on, and when they need something with, I have a new hire, I'm trying to find a technician here and I'm really having a hard time. They all come together and then they share ways that they're solving problems and doing things around that talent management together. And I think it's making a big difference.
Terrific. So diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? I think it is core to what we think about every single day. So how, when you're thinking about leaders in your broader, bigger teams, how does diversity and that diversity of either backgrounds, diversity thoughts, what are the things that you leverage in that diversity conversation, Jamie, with your teams and leadership and continue to drive down?
I've walked into new accounts that I take over and am managing, and I'll have a very direct conversation with somebody and say, you don't have enough diversity on your team. Like it's something we need to have a thoughtful plan around and do something about, because it's not going to make you your best. It's not going to make us our best for our clients. I'm also very conscious of, are we a representation of what our clients are, right?
Yeah.
So like I had this great experience recently where I was on a pitch where we had a very diverse team, and I don't even think we really thought about it. It was almost all women, for one, which was very different. And one of the clients came up to us afterwards, and she was very serious and almost emotional, and was so happy that she was seeing all these senior level women, right, being part of this presentation, not just senior level women, but people like at the project management level and almost every leadership role that we had. So I kind of took that to heart, and I thought, this is really important. It makes a difference. It makes a difference to people, and it makes a difference to our teams. I just think we have to be very intentional. But the more diverse that the teams get, the more diverse the teams get. Yeah. So because the people tend to be a little bit more like you or come from the environments that you're from. If you're an engineer, you probably know a bunch of engineers. There's all those different things, and it makes a difference.
I love that. And I think that's the winning equation, when the team is at the core is fully diverse, and then you have leaders that it just happens as normal nature. You're not actually thinking about, hey, let me go find a diverse person. We don't want to be in that spot. No. We're in a place that we have a great diverse talent, right, and we're just bringing the best talent to the table every single day. Right. So Shannon, I'll just adjust the diversity kind of question for you a little bit, and it's how intentional is that conversation with the teams about diversity? So
I love the frame on that question, because I have a unique opportunity, given that, at the PSC Americas, for example, we have almost 1,600 associates who are centralized together, serving more than 100 different account teams. So we have this really unique ability to attract talent, many times early in career talent, folks at various stages and levels throughout their careers, and bring them together to work not only within one account team, but to experience many other functions and teams and folks with different sets of experiences. And so through that, we can be really intentional in, starting with the recruiting process, the interview process, ensuring that our candidates who are coming through the doors are meeting with a sample set of the individuals they would work with, right? So being thoughtful about putting a diverse panel of folks together to interview. We can be really intentional about learning and development and how we can accelerate our highly diverse talent within the organization at the PSC. So it's really important to be intentional. It's not something that I found in my career that we can just hope the right things are happening. We really have to ensure that in all steps of the process, starting with how we recruit talent, that we're having the conversation in a very straightforward fashion to achieve the outcomes that we have. And so proud that we're sitting at more than 50% female within the PSC. And I think even now, as we think about the industry as a whole, it's incredibly unique.
It's a great story, right? And that love the passion that I know you both bring day in and day out around making sure we have the makeup of the teams that are the best and really represent our clients the best every single day. So we've had a lot of great conversation around how do we drive the talent. I mean, when we're together with a client, what's a great partnership look like when we think about talent management and working with a client day in and day out, Jamie?
So for me, and I'll just give examples of where I feel like it's been the recipe for a really great relationship as it relates to partnership around talent. One, I think it's transparency, like having really open and honest dialogues, being a good listener, asking the right questions, I think is also really important. I talk to clients a lot. They'll say to me, how do I get the best talent? And how do I get them to stay? That's another thing, right? is I always say, use the word destination account. I'm like, you want to become a destination account. Let's put a plan together so that this becomes a destination account for our teams and our talent. I think the recipe for that around is alignment, ensuring that everyone understands what success looks like. It's clients that come in and actually are willing to get on a town hall with us, with our team, to be able to share what's important and why why the decisions are being made that they are, so that the teams understand. It's partnering around that culture piece and really having good conversations about what makes people successful on the account, and then what have we seen that kind of makes them not successful, and are those things we fix, or are those things that we hire around? It's just that ongoing conversation. But I think when I have worked with clients where we make it a joint goal that we want it to be a destination account and put some measurements around that. What does that look like? The flip side of that is when we have accounts where I think we don't do a good job of partnering and or we don't do a good job of clarifying what success looks like for people. I think you have the opposite. You start getting a reputation of, oh, that account's really hard. No one wants to work there. So it's really flipping that script and making it a place that people want to work. That's very much on us too. And making it a fun place. I think what you said about people being loved and feeling that they're cared about. And yeah, we do really hard things for clients, but that doesn't mean we can't have fun. It doesn't mean that we can't enjoy what we do. It doesn't mean we can't be successful. I always tell my teams, celebrate successes, no matter how small they are, because they matter and it makes people feel good about what they do.
I love that, and the whole conversation of destination account is a big deal. Shannon, I know you've got relationships, clients that have been around for more than a decade.
Yeah.
I'll just put it at that. But teams that still are excited every day to help drive for that. How does that play out day to day with that client and that partnership?
Well, it's funny because I was thinking of a much newer relationship when we're talking about destination account. This financial services client I'm thinking of, who's been a client of ours for the last 4 years, has quickly become for us a destination account. And I think part of the reason is that, we've got this opportunity for folks to now grow into, larger, more complex deals, doing things like selling assets and working in redevelopment and things that are really challenging. So from one perspective, that immediately tells folks, I've got an opportunity to grow here, right? So that's exciting. And then we have a client who's super demanding, but who are just great people. And they're really calling on us and challenging us to do things like make sure that we have a diverse team at the table, make sure that when we have interns who are coming to work with us for the summer, that we're giving them opportunities to join meetings with this client's executive team so that they're exposed to a lot of things during the time they're interning with Cushman and Wakefield. So while clients have high expectations of us, I always tell them, I'm fine with that because I have really high expectations for our team. But gosh, if we can give them really fulfilling work and a client who's appreciative of that at the end of the day, that's pretty much the secret sauce right there.
I love that, right? Because at the end of the day, iron sharpens iron.
Mm-hmm.
So, we love clients where we can actually have good, challenging conversations, be able to pick out what is something that we can accomplish together we never thought we could alone. So love that dialogue. A lot of times in these conversations, it's all about, hey, everything's roses, everything, what's our philosophy, those type of conversations. Sometimes we mess up, right? And sometimes we don't get the right account team put in place. Do you have an example of maybe a place to where it didn't work and you had to adjust? How did you do that? Jamie, if I can start with you.
Sure.
Where's an example where, hey, it didn't quite work, but we got there?
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of one right now where it was actually kind of a hard role for us to fill, and I would say I compromised a little bit on culture, and probably not realizing it at the time. I didn't quite know the client quite as well as I know them now, and I really sold a person who had worked for me in the past that I really felt was going to be great. I would say fairly quickly, I realized that it wasn't going to work. And it wasn't going to work for the person either, because the person was highly driven, was really more of a change type person versus make it really good how it is kind of person. And it just didn't work. And it wasn't a work product. It was just really that ability for the client to feel comfortable. Client sometimes felt like he was being pushed to do things he wasn't ready to do. So the best thing I've learned is just to have an open, honest conversation. And so we had a conversation, we came up with a plan and a strategy, and we worked through it. But I've always learned that just being honest and open and having a plan, don't go back to them without a plan or strategy on how you're going to fix the situation, makes a difference.
Oh, it's terrific, and love the transparency. Thank you for that, right? Because I mean, we don't get everything right all the time. We use the words "bad news doesn't age well," right? And I think that's key. I mean, when I was an account director in my career, I was the guy having to wake up clients at 4 a.m. because there was a power blip at a data center, right? And calling your client at 4 a.m. and getting them out of bed to have a conversation. It's not a phone call any of us want to make, but the idea is that the love and trust for the client to make sure that they're taken care of is key.
And let's just say we have to, again, that bad news. You have to go to the client with the bad news. You need to have you have to put yourself in his shoes and have that same passion about that he has, so that he feels like you get it.
Yeah.
And that can mean, even if you're a steady Eddie kind of person, it means that you're saying, hey, I know this is bad, right?
Feel your pain.
I feel your pain. I know that it's an issue. These are the things I'm doing about it. I'm going to text you and like you get it and you care and you understand that their career is potentially not on the line necessarily, but their boss is determining how they look based upon how we perform or what we do or how we respond to a situation. Like trying to pretend like it's not happening doesn't do anybody any good. But the more you put it out there, the better the response is. Then the client, again, feels like you get it, feels like you know what's happening, that you're on top of things and that you got a plan to solve it, versus them feeling like they constantly have to tell you what needs to happen or that kind of giving you a lot more direction.
Terrific. Well, this has been an amazing, fun time for me. Often we do this more virtually, right? And not a lot of time in person these days. But talking about how to get the right team around the table, I think is key. The value that it creates for ourselves and our clients is very important. So thanks for joining me and talking about this with this team around the table. And thank you for your leadership continually every day.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Team Around the Table. Look forward to sharing more information through other episodes throughout the next few weeks and months.